I'd laid out my dress hours ago. Pale blue, simple, elegant. Nothing flashy. Just enough to say, I'm doing well, without screaming it. The apartment was quiet, only the sound of the ceiling fan spinning lazily above. I could hear my own breathing. Steady, too steady. I'd been pretending all day, pretending this dinner might change something. That maybe, just maybe, tonight would be different. I still remember the moment I said yes to the proposal. Not because I was swept off my feet, but because I finally felt like I'd built something on my own. Away from them. Away from the shadows of my childhood home. Yet here I was, hours away from the engagement dinner, still hoping for a sign of approval, from people who never gave it freely. You can't choose your family, I whispered to the mirror, touching my necklace, but you can choose how much power they have over you. I wanted that to be true. I needed it to be. My phone buzzed on the counter. I didn't rush to it. Too many years had taught me that texts from my brother rarely carried good news. But tonight I had to check. Dinner at 8. Hope you're ready. That was it. No congratulations. No acknowledgement of the occasion. Just that smug little smiley face at the end. Like he knew something I didn't. My stomach knotted. He always had that smirk. When he told me I didn't make the soccer team. When he accidentally let slip that Mum threw away my college acceptance letter before I even saw it. That same energy, cocky, calculated. I stared at the message, heart pacing. Should I respond? What would I even say? I set the phone down. Sometimes, silence is stronger than any comeback. I read the message again and again. Each word started to feel like a jab. Dinner at 8. Like he was hosting. Like this was his event. Hope you're ready. Ready for what? Ready for the usual digs about my job. Not being real work. Ready for Mum to pretend. Like she hadn't forgotten my birthday 3 years in a row. Or maybe this time would be different. But I knew better. He didn't text unless it meant something. He had a way of ruining moments. Subtle. Never loud. A whisper in the ear. A well-timed comment. A joke masked as just kidding that landed like a slap. He never hit me. Not physically. But emotional bruises? He was a master of those. I'd hoped foolishly. I guessed that he'd changed. That the engagement would be enough to bring some civility. But I should have remembered. Every milestone I hit, he made smaller. When I graduated, he said, you know, community college is basically high school with vending machines. When I bought my first car, he laughed. Still can't afford anything new, huh? Now, this dinner. It wasn't about food. It was about power. The people who break you, I once read, often have the keys to the pieces. I hated how true that felt. But this time, he didn't have the keys. Not anymore. 2 weeks ago, I sold the house. The house. Our childhood home. The one my parents left behind. Full of old pictures, peeling paint, and 1,000 unspoken resentments. After probate, the paperwork was clear. It was mine. They fought it, of course. Said I forged something. Claimed Dad would never want me to have it. But the court saw the truth, and I held the deed. I didn't gloat. I didn't even tell anyone. Not even Jason, my fiancé. I wanted one thing in this world that didn't come with commentary or conditions. The buyers were an older couple from Michigan, downsizing, to be near their grandkids. They walked through the rooms, touched the walls gently, as if they could feel the memories embedded in them. And maybe they could. Maybe that's why it felt right. This house held our memories. I told myself that day. But it held my pain too. So I let it go. He didn't know. None of them did. I looked at the clock. 7:58 p.m. 2 minutes. I picked up the small velvet box, slipped it into my coat pocket. They don't even know, I whispered, half smiling. And with that, I walked out the door. The house looked familiar, but not mine. It had the same bones, the narrow porch, the crooked mailbox that never closed right. But now, there were string lights hanging from the railing, plastic flamingos in the front garden, curtains I didn't recognize. Someone had planted lavender near the driveway. That was never Mum's style. I parked across the street, engine off, hands gripping the wheel. I watched as people walked up the path like they belonged there. Like this place had always been theirs. A few cars I didn't recognize. One I did Lucian's SUV, parked like it owned the sidewalk. It's strange how a house can forget your name faster than people do, I muttered. The street lamp flickered overhead. I took a breath, fixed my hair in the mirror, and stepped out. They didn't invite me. Not really. But he'd sent the message. That meant he wanted me to know. That was enough. Sometimes showing up is the loudest thing you can do. Inside, the air felt like something you bite into, and regret too sweet, too sharp. I opened the door, walked past a group near the foyer, and caught the way conversation dipped. Like someone had lowered the volume just for me. Lucian stood near the fireplace, laughing with his back turned. When he saw me, his expression tightened for a split second. Then came the grin. Well, look who finally found her way home. Marina was next. Gliding over in heels, too high for comfort. Her dress was tight, her smile tighter. Didn't think you'd actually come, she said, sipping her wine. We weren't sure the address still worked. I smiled back, too still. Guests murmured greetings, most with that half-confused tone like they weren't sure why I was there. Or worse, who I even was. Someone asked where I got my dress. Another congratulated me, awkwardly, on whatever it is you're celebrating. The table was set for 12. My name card? Tucked at the far end, next to the kitchen door. I could feel the draft every time it swung open. I overheard a woman behind me, whispering to Marina, I thought this was your house now? Marina laughed too loudly. Oh, it's been in the family for years. Some technicalities with paperwork, but you know how things go. I cut a slice of roast chicken, eyes down, heart thudding. I hadn't even started eating when the front door opened again. I looked up and froze. Mark. He walked in like he owned the floor. Same confident gait, same tailored jacket I once picked out for him. His eyes scanned the room, and when they met mine, he paused, just enough to register me. Oh, I said under my breath. Marina's voice floated across the room, cheerful and sharp. I thought it'd be nostalgic. He's still close to the family, after all. Nostalgic. That was one word for it. Mark smiled, extended a hand, like we hadn't shared 3 years and 1,000 nights of silence between us. Kelly, you look, well. I shook it. Barely. No one had told me. Not a soul. Lucian clapped him on the back, pulled him into the fold like a brother. I sat down before my knees buckled. Everything about this was curated like I'd stepped into a play, and everyone else had rehearsed. They didn't just want to exclude me. They wanted to humiliate me. Mark drifted toward the bar, laughing with some cousins. Marina passed behind me, fingers brushing my chair. Still brings back memories, doesn't it? She whispered. My glass stayed half full, untouched. My mind, full overflowing. I could have left, walked out, let them win again. But I didn't. Instead, when dessert was being set, and someone made a clumsy toast about new beginnings, I stood up. The room quieted. Forks paused mid-air. To families, I said, calm, measured. Who show up for appearances, if not for love? Laughter stopped. Chairs creaked. Lucian stared like I'd just thrown a match into gasoline. Marina's hand tightened on her napkin. A few guests coughed, shifted. One raised a glass, unsure if it was a joke or not. I stayed standing until the silence became heavier than the words. Then Saturday. Sometimes staying still in a storm is its own kind of rebellion. Lucian didn't say a word for the next 10 minutes, but I could feel it boiling behind his smile. Then, as dessert was served, he leaned in close. That house may be sold, Kelly, but we'll always own the story. I turned to him, held his stare, and smiled. Cold, slow, unblinking. That's where he made the mistake. The story's just getting started. I stepped inside my apartment as the door clicked shut behind me, carrying every weight of the evening. The hallway light was soft, but I felt its glare on me exposed. I kicked off my shoes quietly, the soles thudding against the hardwood floor, like distant thunder. I stood before the mirror, looking at my reflection. Lipstick smudged, shoulders tight, eyes hollow but alert. I poured wine straight into the glass, not from care or indulgence, but necessity. I raised the bottle and tilted it back. The silence that followed was louder than applause ever could be. In that quiet, I heard the echo of every insult, every dismissal, every night. I stayed silent. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. I stared at it for a long moment before picking it up. A shared album notification. Dinner night. Family and guests. I tapped it with hesitation. At first, the photos were innocuous. Smiles with candles. Group shots on the porch. Then there it was. In the kitchen frame, Marina's hand rested on Mark's chest. Not playful. Not distant too close. Her eyes were cast downward. His expression unreadable. I stared. Heart thundering. The date was a few hours before dinner. She'd arranged for him to be there. She'd made sure. For years, I replayed every argument, every cold laugh, every sharp remark. Now they sharpened into clarity. Marina weaving herself into their history, nudging my space out of frame. Lucien standing silent when I looked for an ally. And Mark, someone I trusted, acting like I never mattered. I dropped the picture. It fluttered across my carpet. Wine splashed from the glass. Droplets traced paths. I refused to wipe. My throat tightened. They didn't just want me excluded. They wanted me erased. I grabbed my old journal from the shelf. 2 years ago, I'd written, "I wonder what she wants from me, even when I give her nothing." I bookmarked it. I read the line, tasted its bitterness. Everything lined up now, the small jokes, the forgotten favors, the quiet demands. It was all an insidious architecture, built to push me out. My fingers shook slightly, but I steadied them. I printed the photo that had broken me. I placed it face down on the table. I opened a folder. I started another. Evidence. Emails. Screenshots. Names. I catalogued it all. The impulse to throw it into Lucian's inbox, or post it online, flickered in me. But I smothered it. I couldn't play their game. Not yet. I wrote in my notebook. Document. Don't detonate. I sketched out a timeline. Door opened. Camera angles. Guest arrivals. I mapped who stood, where, when. I wanted to pour gasoline and light the match, but I refused. The goal changed. I didn't want revenge tonight. I wanted truth. I wanted clarity. I wanted to force them into silence. Not for pity, but for guilt. A notification popped up. Message from Dad's old friend. I heard what happened. I think it's time we talked. Your father left you more than a memory. My breath caught. The room dimmed slightly as Lucien tapped his glass, his silver cufflinks catching the low chandelier light. Everyone turned. Forks paused mid-air. Conversations hushed. I could feel the quiet crawl across the table like fog. He stood tall, the way he always did when he wanted control. Marina rose beside him, smiling too brightly. She clinked her glass with his and lifted it high. To family, she said, pausing long enough to make sure every pair of eyes landed on me. To unity, and the future we build together. There was weight in that word. Together. As if I was not part of that we. People raised their glasses. Some looked at me with a quick glance and a half smile. Others didn't look at all. I kept my posture straight. Glass in hand. Didn't drink yet. Just looked around, silently marking each expression. Sometimes, applause hides the loudest jeers. I brought the glass to my lips, slowly. Not for celebration. For defiance. I sipped like it was nothing. Swallowed like it meant everything. When I set the glass down, I knew I was officially back in enemy territory. The clinking died down, and the plates returned to motion. But I noticed something strange. My place card gone. I scanned the table again. Everyone else had one. A small rectangle, with gold lettering. Not mine. I turned slightly. Enough to hear a woman behind me whisper, "Wasn't Kelly supposed to sit here?" Marina's voice cut in with a breezy laugh. "Oh, I thought she wouldn't come." There it was. Not an accident. Not a slip. She wanted me standing. She wanted me searching. Like an afterthought. I looked down at the empty space, where my name should have been, and smiled. Not because I found it funny, because I knew they were expecting me to fold. I remembered RSVPing. I triple-checked the email, the confirmation, the delivery receipt. They knew I was coming. They just didn't want me to exist in the story. They invited me to show up, not to belong. Dinner dragged forward. Marina played the gracious host, passing plates, complimenting Lucien like he was her personal hero. When the waiter brought the entrees, mine was placed in front of Camille, who wasn't even engaged to anyone in the family. I corrected him gently, smiling as I moved the plate. My hands trembled under the table. Marina laughed in the corner, close with Lucien. I couldn't hear the words, but the tone was unmistakable satisfaction. She wasn't hosting a dinner. She was staging a performance. I was the unwanted character who ruined the script. I reached for my purse. My fingers brushed the folded edge of the photo. I'd printed the one of her and Mark, but I didn't pull it out. Not yet. She glanced at me across the table, as if daring me. Her eyes narrow, calculated. They're not just erasing me tonight. They're erasing my presence. And yet, I stayed. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I documented. Who laughed? Who avoided eye contact? Who whispered to whom? I unfolded my napkin, slid the photo under it, felt its weight, like a stone. I started composing a speech in my head. Not to humiliate, to reveal. When someone shows you who they are, I thought, hearing Maya Angelou's voice from memory, believe them the first time. I watched, listened, and waited. Not with fear, but with control. Power, I realized, doesn't come from being seen. It comes from knowing what they don't think you know. The more I sat still, the more they showed their hands. As dessert was served, Marina leaned toward Lucien. Her voice was a whisper, but I heard enough. Everything's going exactly how I planned. I didn't flinch. I didn't look away. I turned to her slowly, met her eyes, and smiled. The dawn came too soon. At 5:13 a.m., I was still on the balcony, still in the dress I'd worn to the dinner, watching the city wake without me. The streets were empty. The houses slept. Inside, my mind was relentless, replaying every glance, every whisper from last night. I held the photo of Marina and Mark, the one that cracked open everything. Beside it, my father's note, faded ink, steady, handwriting. Be patient with truth. I used to read that as delay, but now it felt like warning. My phone buzzed. A voicemail. The caller ID froze me. David Harris, my father's old confidant. I pressed play. Kelly. His voice cracked. There's something about your father's will you don't know. It's time we talked. My chest tightened. The air on the balcony felt colder. A few hours later, I sat across from him in his law office. The smell of pine cleaner and old books pressed around us. He slid a folder across the desk. Your father's will was altered, he said, voice low. A clause was removed, just before the document was finalized. I leaned forward. Removed by whom? He swallowed. Lucien. Under power of attorney. The clause granted you the house upon engagement. I felt dizziness. It was mine. All along? He nodded. But he amended it. Your father never signed the change. I stared at blank lines, where my name should have been. The betrayal wasn't loud, it was surgical. Driving home, the city felt different. Familiar facades blurred into suspicion. I walked through memory lanes. Lucien handling things. Dad avoiding direct answers. Marina always present when decisions were made. Connections aligned. Design emerged. In my apartment, I dropped my keys. I didn't cry. I opened my laptop and created a folder named War Room. I deleted 3 unsent angry texts to Lucien. I pulled up the will again. Made copies. Scanned every page. Logged every date. The emotional weight shifted to something precise. Evidence. They didn't just steal the house. They stole my sense of belonging. With dusk thinning into night, I brewed black coffee and watched the dim light tilt across my desk. Then I heard something soft, deliberate paper sliding across wood. My door cracked open. An unmarked envelope rested there. No name, no address. Inside, a silver flash drive, labeled Play Me First, from someone who was us. There. I held it, pulse steady. I sat, opened my laptop, and hovered my finger above the port. I pressed my finger over the USB slot, and paused. My heart pounded. but my hand didn't shake. I pushed it in. The folder names appeared instantaneously. Estate audit. Private. 2020. And voice notes. I opened the first folder. Spreadsheets. Transaction logs. Bold figures. Every line looked precise, deliberate. I scrolled until I found it transfers from my father's foundation into an LLC registered under Lucian's name. Then I opened voice notes. A single file. I clicked play. His voice, barely more than a whisper, filled the room. If Kelly ever asks, tell her I tried to fix it, but I ran out of time. My lungs tightened. His tone broke sometimes, as if he'd been recording through coughing fits. The background noise was subtle, a soft ticking. It matched the clock in his study. He had recorded this there. The truth doesn't always set you free. Sometimes, it locks every door behind you. I played the file again and again, picking out small truths. How he paused before saying my name. How the clock ticked louder in the gap. Then I dove into email archives. Lucian's messages from that period. Don't let her know. Dad's too tired for meetings. I'll handle it. Each subject line felt like a warning. I cross-referenced. Transfer dates. The sale of the house closed exactly 3 days after my engagement announcement. The files and the house sale aligned perfectly. Everything fell in place. Betrayal was no longer abstract. It was evidence. I closed the laptop and walked to my father's old study, in memory. I retrieved the backup drives I never touched. Plugged one in. A folder named Letters Unsigned appeared. I opened a file. To Kelly. His handwriting. The draft words were raw. Lucian means well, but ambition blinds him. If you are reading this, I couldn't intervene in time. Tears came slow. He had seen this coming. He tried to protect us both. But silence was his decision. He didn't choose me. He didn't choose him. He chose peace. And peace destroyed us. I closed that file and pulled myself upright. No more grief. Time to act. I copied every document, every audio file, every email to 3 separate backups. One to my desk drawer, one to a cloud storage I control, one in a hidden drive. Then I printed essential pages. I placed them in a document folder, titled Evidence, ready for safekeeping. Next, I drafted a message to a reporter I once trusted. There's a story hidden in Charleston property records. I have proof. Then I pulled out an envelope and scribbled a short note to Lucian. You once said you owned the story. I'm about to publish the ending. I sealed it. Everything. Now had purpose. My phone buzzed. Private number. I answered. A woman's voice. Calm and cold. If you want to stay alive, stop digging into your brother's past. Click. The hush that followed felt heavier than the night itself. Late into the night, I crept toward my jewelry box. I needed that ring, not for celebration, but for proof. It was supposed to be a symbol. I opened the box. Empty. Nothing but velvet fabric. The outline of where the ring should have been. My heart hammered. I checked jacket pockets. The bathroom counter. My purse. I replayed in my head the moment I set it beside the photo from the flash drive. I saw Camille earlier, adjusting her own ring, just a casual gesture. But now a flashback I couldn't ignore. They didn't just remove me. They stole my promise too. I clenched my fists. This wasn't a mistake. I dialed Lucian first. His voice came calm, distant. Do you have my ring? I said. He paused. I'll check. I ended the call and texted Marina. The ring is missing. Did you see it? No reply. Then Elias's name appeared on my phone. He asked how I was. I said fine, though nothing was fine. He murmured. You know, sometimes giving something means losing it forever. I froze where I stood, phone pressed to my ear. His voice was casual, but I heard the dismissal. I heard how little my hurt mattered. I didn't answer. Rage twisted through me. I grabbed my keys and drove to the family home. The streets were dark. My reflection stared back at me in the windshield. Distorted. I parked, slipped through the back door. The house was silent except for distant hums. I moved through rooms, living room, guest hall, down the hallway I once knew by heart. The ring wasn't here, but frames were askew, drawers partly open, signs of disturbance. Then a voice behind me, soft but sharp. You should have stayed home. I turned. Marina stood in shadow, a smirk half lit. "Where is my ring?" I said, loud enough to echo. "Why are you acting like I never belonged?" She said nothing. Lucian stepped out behind her slowly. Tension crackled in the hallway. I felt every second. They trained me to be silent. Tonight, I break the lesson. My heart pounded so loud I thought they'd hear it. Then Elias appeared in the doorway, face drawn, eyes flicking between us. He murmured to me in that low tone I once trusted. "You always wanted things too much." That one line cut deeper than any betrayal. I repeated it under my breath. Too much? He didn't see what he did. He never did. The pride in my older sibling, the murals of success in my brother's shadow, they never painted my name. Tears stung my eyes. I steadied them. I would not beg. I stepped forward, voice low but firm. "I want back the promise and the dignity you all erased." Lucian turned, and Elias's jaw tightened. Marina's smirk fell, her posture shifting. Then Lucian held up a small velvet pouch. It swayed in his hand in the dim light. "Is this what you were looking for?" he asked. He opened the pouch. The ring was there, but taped underneath, a folded note. My breath caught. I stepped into the room at the worst possible moment. The overhead lights were low, candles flickered, and a hush fell immediately as I crossed the threshold. Conversation stopped. Glasses paused mid-lift. All eyes turned. Marina stood at a raised platform, flanked by Lucian. She turned, her lips curving into a polite smile, as she called out, "Kelly Davenport." Her voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. The crowd murmured, questions floated up. Did she ever mean it? Is she back for drama? Walking into a forest when all paths, except one, are traps. I held my head high, took measured steps. The whispers trailed me. I felt shame flicker, but I pushed it down. This was confrontation. This was exposure. When the speeches began, Marina walked forward, raised her glass. She spoke boldly. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's clear up a rumor. Kelly chose to end things. Why? Because she couldn't handle scrutiny." Laid out like that, the murmurs multiplied. Sympathy here, judgment there. Lucian nodded subtly. The narrative was already shifting in their favor. Faces turned my way. Pain flicked under my ribs. But I forced a smile. Calm. Composed. Anger curled inside me, ready to strike. If words were guns, they'd have emptied ours years ago. Then came the next blow. A waiter halfway across the room spoke. "Server to table 12. Pointing at me. Gasps. One guest whispered, "Did she really think she belonged here?" My voice caught. My hand twitched. But I held still. A flicker of the lights just long enough for a guest's phone camera to catch a seam opened in my dress. A tear along a stitched panel. The dress I had chosen, imagined, hoped, would stand beautiful that night. Instead it had been sabotaged. Accusations floated. Some subtle, some cruel. She did this herself to stir drama. Classic move. I heard laughter. I shielded my face. They broke the dress. Not me. They tried to break me. I walked forward, eyes on Marina and Lucian. The room was quiet again. Tense. Then I climbed the platform. Uninvited. Unannounced. I pulled out my phone and the flash drive. A hush fell over everyone. I pressed play. On the big screen, Marina's and Lucian's secrets spilled into the open. Financial spreadsheets. Emails. The voice recording from Dad's study. One by one, each piece emerged. The crowd gasped. Some recoiled. Some held hands over mouths. Marina's face went pale. Lucian's posture stiffened. My voice came steady. "You invited rumors. I brought facts. I let the screen scroll proof. Not rumor. The house transfers. The emails. The voice note." Power shifted. The guests who had leaned away now leaned closer. They looked at me differently. Marina's lips opened, but no words came. Then, suddenly, the lights cut. The room plunged into darkness. In that blackness, my voice echoed. "Let it get brighter now."